what I'm thinking about. For parents that are considering bringing their daughters to Fulshear. The first thing is, out of our own experience, it may take some effort to get there. So, as I recall, things didn't line up immediately. So, and it's okay if you have to make special arrangements, or if things don't work out the first time, or if there are barriers to getting there, to getting your daughter there for the first time. I'd say almost expect it. I don't know if it's true all the time, but in my experience, there are things maybe to do with your daughter, things to do with transportation, things to do with your own life, that could potentially make it a little bit difficult to get there the first time. We had a lot of assistance from Fulshear. We ended up in Texas ahead of time, almost, I think, a week ahead of time. And I got a lot of support from the people at Fulshear in terms of what to do with my daughter, how to, keep her engaged, and that felt really good to me. Let's see. So, other advice. So, my daughter was adopted from Russia. As I understand, many of the other young women are in the program adopted from various places. And that brought all kinds of things to my daughter's life and to our lives as a family. And one of the things that came along with that were a lot of issues with relationships, and particularly unhealthy relationships, prior to coming to Fulshear. What I would say is I found the therapists at Fulshear particularly good at getting into what makes a healthy relationship, getting into the kind of direction or path or changes that my daughter had to work on to get closer to having healthy relationships. Once I understood what was going on, this whole relationship piece, it felt very comforting to me as a parent, and I know to my wife as well, to know what we were working on, both for our daughter, but for us as a family as well. It was a kind of relief. We didn't know a lot about what she went through as an adopted child, and a lot of what she went through, the trauma that she encountered early in life before she was really old enough to know what was going on. And we learned a lot through the family therapy and through Oksana, actually directly through our daughter. We learned a tremendous amount about the impact, and reflecting back on it, it helped us a lot as a family. I guess another thing I'd like to share is with any new transition, there are potentially bumps in the road at the beginning. So I learned through our daughter and through meeting other parents of kids at Fulshear that they can have a bumpy road for their first days or weeks at Fulshear, and it's quite an adjustment. So my advice and my thought on this is expect a little bit of a bumpy road in the beginning, and expect perhaps hearing some things from your daughter that might not be so comfortable. And bear in mind, they're facing a whole new environment, a therapeutic environment, a more structured environment in many ways. And there's bound to be a little bit of rebellion or pushback. And it can feel bigger than it really is, because we're sitting far away and you're not seeing firsthand what's going on. And so what I learned was that I could really trust the residential people, the people that are there with them 24/7, and the therapists, et cetera, in getting them through this adjustment period. I think the key there is, or what told me I could trust it, was that after the fact, my daughter sort of came clean with us about what her role in all this bumpy road was. So it went from me knowing that that Fulshear was a safe and protective place, to my daughter validating. And that was really, that was a big one. I remember that. So I remember hearing things that just blew me away about Fulshear. So I remember hearing my daughter say things like, oh yeah, we got to take care of the horses there on the property. And there were wonderful things that I saw with her bonding with those animals, and her enjoying taking responsibility for caring for them, and her wanting to do more of that. And it was a nice connection with her earlier life, because as a child, she had been a little bit involved with horses. And so there was a nice connection there. I also remember her descriptions of how nice some of the facilities were. And that was also very comforting, because when I first went there with her, I had a brief look at things. I had a visual image, but once I heard her talking about where they lived, where they slept, things on the grounds, and I could put that together with my initial mental picture, I also found that comforting. I remember wondering how long is she going to be there? You know, how long is this going to take? And feeling that was maybe uncomfortable knowing that. And so, one, you want your child to become better at dealing with the things that bother her and that have gotten in the way of her living a happy life, and you want that to happen quickly. Then there was another piece of it in my life, and again, talking with other parents of daughters there was the financial piece. So there was some stress around the finances of this. And so advice, thoughts are, looking back, it was well worth it financially, what we had to go through financially. It was truly a real stressor. Another piece of advice, or another thought along those lines, is if you can, tell your family what's going on, tell your extended family what's going on. You'd be surprised how sympathetic and supportive, both emotionally and financially, family can be, you know, if they have the means to be supportive financially, but also emotionally. And it really helped us to reach out and to include extended family. At the end of the time at the ranch, my wife and I, and then once by myself and once my wife by herself, came to the family events. Those were big, particularly as it pertained to connecting with other parents. It's worth your time if you can break away from work or family or whatever you can do. It's worth going to the family events. There are opportunities to meet with people there individually. I was pleasantly surprised by how forthcoming the other young women were about their situations and how much they wanted to talk about it with other adults other than their parents. It was almost like it felt good to them, and it sort of normalized the situation my family found itself in. And I could see other young women who had been through similar things, and also some young women that had been through much more difficult times than my own child. There's a lot, as family, there's a lot to be gained from that. I met the other residents' parents. In some cases, they came with another child from the same family. Do it is my recommendation. Find a way to get there. It's really wonderful. And finally, I'll just reflect a little bit on the program at the apartments. So after the ranch, our daughter went to the apartments in Stafford. Yeah. So my daughter already had quite a few life skills. She knew how to do a lot of things, but she hadn't practiced them, I guess is what I would say. So taking on responsibility in a shared apartment, having responsibilities there, having to show up at first down the road where the Fulshear offices are, on a schedule and get there reliably on your own, doing shopping, housekeeping, looking for a job. All these things were things that she touched on, but never really been independent at. I think there's always room for growth in terms of life skills, no matter how independent your daughter may have been or not independent, perhaps. Practicing those in that safe environment is really big. Both as I went through the experience with my daughter and afterwards, I have positive feelings about the whole experience. Came to know a lot of the faculty and staff there over many visits. Always felt very comfortable, felt like I could speak openly with them, whether my daughter was with us or not. It was a positive experience overall for my daughter, for my family, and for me personally. I will say now, some 6-7 months after leaving the program, my daughter is really, really functional. She's doing so much better than we would have expected at this point. And it's a relief. After many, many years of living with all of our daughter's struggles, we're now, for the last 3 or 4 months or so, I'd say, we're at a point where we can take a deep breath and relax a little bit and feel like she's okay now. And I will leave you with that.